guys, we are back with Messy on Purpose, and I have G here with me today. He said I could use his nickname, and I'm going to let him go ahead and do an introduction on himself, and then we'll dive right in.
Hey, Felicia, great. Yeah, no, I'm excited to be on the show. G, or GG, the franchise guy, Giuseppe Grammatico. It's a mouthful, and it's even harder to spell. But thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, just born and raised in New Jersey, in the franchise business, self-employed the last couple decades, and really excited to share and talk about, any topic really that pertains to business and mistakes made and all that kind of great stuff.
Okay, so when you say you're the franchise guy, what does that mean?
Yeah, so we essentially help individuals figure out what's next, career transition. So if it means just got laid off, we've seen a lot of federal employees get laid off, a lot of the tech sector, people losing their jobs, or just not happy with their job. They're employed and they're not sure kind of what's next, but they know it's not another job. We help people explore throughout the U.S. and Canada if franchise ownership makes sense, if it's a good fit based off of what they're looking to create. So we work with a lot of corporate executives, military veterans transitioning out of the military, even current business owners that want to either convert their business into a franchise or either convert it or just bolt on a franchise business. We work with business owners as well. So it's really nice. We really get to figure out if owning a business, and we explain it in simple terms so that it's not this big overwhelm and there's all these myths and misinformation out there. So we really simplify the process.
Very cool. And so franchises I know a little bit about, but not like too much. So going into like kind of how that works, do you own any yourself first?
Sold my last franchise a couple of years ago and looking to reinvest in a business in the salon suite space here in New Jersey. But sold my last businesses. I've also owned non-franchise businesses. I grew up in the Italian restaurant business here in New Jersey. And with a name like Giuseppe, you need to own an Italian restaurant. So, but yeah, so I've kind of had the exposure of owning a franchise, a non-franchise. They're both great. It all comes down to the match. And it's really fun. It's really fun to work with people and figuring out those next steps.
What kind of different businesses? So you said you want to get into the salon. So what were the franchises before? You said Italian restaurant. What else did you do?
Yeah, we owned an Italian restaurant. Prior to that, had some side hustles. So we delivered flyers door to door as a kid. So I always had this itch to earn extra income, detailing cars from home, which was kind of cool. Restaurant business was my real kind of diving into it, learning that business with my family. They launched that business in 1975 and had sold that in 2015. So 40 years in business, which is two immigrants from another country coming to the U.S. and making that happen. That's the American dream. That's an extreme success story, which raised the bar really high for me because I had nothing to complain about. As I jokingly say, I appreciate that a lot more today than I did back 20, 30 years ago. We got into the franchising after working on Wall Street and realizing, I had a 5-hour door-to-door commute, which really just wasn't great. We were looking, my wife and I recently married, looking to start a family. We said, if I'm going to be doing that commute and working in New York City, I would never see the kids, just like we never saw Dad unless we worked at the restaurant. So actually found a franchise coach, which is what I do today. And he opened up the world of franchising. I owned my last franchise about 13 years. It was in the building services space. That company was acquired again by another brand. And we maintain properties in the central and northern New Jersey market, which is nothing I had experience with, which is crazy, coming from Wall Street, coming from owning a restaurant with my family. But what I learned was that most franchises don't require any experience whatsoever. I would say 95% of the brands out there, but they are looking for a specific skill set, and that's what I brought to the table. And it was networking, it was sales, it was just the ability to network and talk to property managers and different businesses, going to the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. So that was one of the big misconceptions, is that I needed the experience, and I found that I did not need the experience. I actually just needed that skill set.
It is kind of funny how we question our skills, right? Like an experience when it comes to things. Like if you don't just dive in, you're never going to learn it.
Right.
And we hold ourselves back. Yeah.
I agree, and I'm working with my son right now. He's looking at colleges, and I go, he's got plenty of skill sets that he doesn't realize, and I'm like, you also have to just try things. When I went to school, I wanted to, at the time, make video games, and I loved the idea of these, video game publishers and creating content, software and things like that. To find out I've never programmed a day in my life, so I went to my first programming class. I was going to Rutgers University back in the day, and found that I absolutely hated it. So if I had just had some exposure to it, it would have been night and day. I would not even have bothered with that major. And the same goes with sales. I took a sales class in school, and I realized, okay, I learned all these principles, but you just have to go out there. You just have to network and talk to people, mess up, fall on your face. The podcast, I'm sure the first episode you had, there was a learning curve. I experienced the same thing. I was a guest on a show. I think the camera was like cutting off like half my face. It wasn't even positioned correctly. You could barely hear me. And you learn. You learn from mistakes, and you just get better day by day. And that's the trick. You're not going to be perfect the first time around.
And that idea of perfection holds so many people back. Like they're scared to take that leap. I mean, you've been in, the small business owner life since you were a kid because your parents. And like a lot of people haven't experienced that, but people want to own their own things, but they're scared to make that leap. Do you think like with the franchises, that's kind of a good place to start for most people? I know you say you've worked with a wide range of people.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm guilty of it as well, right? Having kind of that fear and just not knowing where to start and trying to have everything lined up before moving forward, which to find out that's not the case. You have that goal, and you don't necessarily have to figure out how to get there. Who to get there, in my opinion, is much more important. The person that has already gone through that journey and can help you avoid the pitfalls, the mistakes, and things like that. So people like franchising. I will say this: a franchise is not the right fit for everyone, but for the people that do gravitate towards franchise, they don't want to recreate the wheel. They want the business on training wheels, the business that already has the systems in place so that they can execute. So if you were buying a fast food franchise, which is what most people think of when it comes to in the franchise space, so maybe it's a McDonald's of the world, you're not buying that to change the menu, right? You're going in and saying, I'm going to execute. This is where I need to be. This is the staff I need. We have our pricing taken care of, and I just need to execute. Versus I'm going to buy this and change everything. So there's definitely, I think, for the right fit, not the right, so franchising in general has that proven model, and not all brands are created the same. But if you find the strong franchise, strong leadership, and they're a right fit for you, meaning the support that they're giving you, they're allowing you to run the business part-time and keeping the job, and they have a program to hire that and train that general manager. I think for the right fit and the right brand in general, everything aligns. You definitely eliminate a lot of the risk, but there's still absolutely always going to be risk in any business. That things could happen. Most people that I talk to, if they're struggling, it's typically due to financials. They didn't budget accordingly. Maybe the numbers weren't accurate, so that if business took a little longer to get up and running, they ran out of funds to do so and cut back on the marketing. So I've seen that. And I've seen other people just buy a franchise and just completely, go out in left field and just not follow the system for whatever reason. And that's the whole point of buying the franchise is for the system. So, and there's a lot of other things. There's also on the flip side franchisors that maybe the due diligence wasn't there, or maybe it was done and they mismanaged the books, or they didn't follow through with their support. I wish to say in a perfect world it never happens, but it does happen on occasion.
Well, because there's still a lot that's in their plate, right? It's not just like, here's a business, it's going to run itself.
Correct. Yeah, you're right. It's not a set it and forget it. You buy the franchise and they run it for you. Then they don't need you, right? They could just run it themselves. But yeah, absolutely. This is the playbook. You get the full playbook day one, and this is what it takes to be successful. this is past performance of franchisees, our top tier, our bottom tier, and this is what it takes, and we will support you every step of the way. But that support system is only as good as you taking advantage of it, following the systems, following up with your coach and your fellow franchisees.
How often do you see where somebody invests into a franchise and the franchise kind of dies, like just in general, like the business itself?
The you mean the main like the franchise company,
like
or you're talking about
like the whole company? So like all the franchises go down.
Very rare. I mean, does it happen? Sure, but typically what happens is that in the case it does happen, the franchisees may kind of take over the business. So if you own the business that just say was in the marketing space and helping small businesses, you still retain those customers. But we've seen it where franchisees get together to revive the brand. So I wouldn't say I've personally seen it often. I know it's happened once or twice in my career that I've been directly like I know what's going on over here. And in those cases, the franchisees got together and said, okay, let's put together our efforts. Let's all let's split up the company. Let's revive it. Maybe we don't want to revive it. Maybe we just want to leave everything as is and just keep our local markets and run under they're a separate business outside the franchise name.
Okay, so it's pretty, low risk when it comes to investing into a franchise. It all just really depends on you and how you run the business. For the most part.
I would say it's lower risk. I don't want to say low risk, but it's definitely lower risk because of the system in place and executing and following through. And a good franchise is going to tell you up front if the match is there or not early on in the process. So if you have a ton of experience in the restaurant space and it's a fast food franchise and they don't feel like it's a good fit because the role of the franchisee is not to execute on the food, but it's more networking. Or you need a ton of management experience because you have such a large organization, lots of staff. A good franchisor will come back and say, this isn't a good fit at this time. You don't have necessarily the management experience. You have a lot of other experiences. So unless you bring on an operating partner that has that management experience that can assist you with the HR and some of the turnover a restaurant may experience, it may not be a good fit. And that's respectable because what's the point of allowing someone to enter and award them a franchise in that 10-year agreement? If the fit's not going to be there, that's going to be a long 10 years. So it's better to find that earlier, sooner than later. And you see a lot of brands where their president and CEO may join one of the earlier calls as opposed to waiting at the very end and just saying, hey, let's learn a little bit more about you, kind of doing a informal interview to learn a little bit more about them.
Oh, okay. So interesting. So each franchise kind of interviews the person that's interested in being a franchisee.
Correct. Yeah, we have a whole process in place, and I always tell everyone your first call with the brand is a two-way interview. You're interviewing them, they're interviewing you. So equally as important, you want to make sure the fit's there. They want to make sure the fit's there. So that'll be someone on the development team. They may bring on a founder, president later on, and at the very end of the process, when it's time to make decisions, the franchise team will meet together. You may get interviewed by the founder, the president of the brand. They'll have that final interview. They'll meet as a team, formally approve you, and then you have the ability to accept that approval, that award letter saying, yes, you've been approved for this franchise, or you've been denied. Typically, you see people getting those award letters because they've made it that far. If you're not a good fit, they're typically not inviting you to that final interview, what they call a meet the team or discovery day. Excuse me.
You need to grab some water?
Yes.
Before I get you talking again.
Yeah, I was trying to make it through that, so I'm good.
So when it comes to picking the type of franchise, do you have a lot of people that come in already with an idea of what kind of franchise they want to invest in, or how do you help people figure out what type of franchise they should invest in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I get both. I'm like, I like Chick-fil-A, or I don't want food. Those are like the two common that I've been getting the last couple years. Chick-fil-A, they're a big fan of the product. or they've coming out of COVID. We don't want a brick and mortar. We don't want a food concept. There's landlords, too many moving parts. So the advice I give it is simple. There's no correlation between the type of franchise and your return. I think for me, it's more about finding that right match, because we're the goal here is sustainability. You may have a great first year, but what good is that first year if you burn out and now all of a sudden it's a struggle just to get out of bed and open up the doors, depending on what type of franchise. So what we did was, and I was a student of the process as well 20 years ago, was that Subway was the big franchise at the time, and I was looking at Subway and all the hot brands and what people were doing to realize that it was the complete opposite of what I was actually looking for, aside from the big name. So the process is simple. We always set up a first call, figuring out if we're a good fit, if franchising is a good fit, and that's a 20-minute call. Why do you want to own a franchise? Hey, do you have money to invest in a franchise? Believe it or not, a lot of people I talk to they don't have capital. It's not I jokingly say a no money down infomercial, and they're like, well, can you fund it? I'm like, well, you kind of have to have skin in the game to start any business, and you need to pay that franchise fee. So we'll see if it's a good fit. In many cases it is, many cases it's not, and then you have the in-between where it's like it's a good fit, but you need to work on the credit score, maybe some savings, and we put together a follow-up process. If it is a good fit, there's definitely funds to be invested, and we've talked about the various funding options, SBA loans, home equity lines, even a retirement rollover, believe it or not. Then we go into, okay, great. What does this ideal business look like? So we know the why and why you're doing this. We know it's a good fit. So it's kind of the in-between. So what does your staff look like? Your employees look like? Meaning, are they W-2? You're paying them on payroll. Are they 1099 contractors? Do you anticipate a lot of employees, or would you prefer to keep the employee count to a minimum? Do you see yourself in a physical location? Do you see yourself working from home? Not that your customers are coming to you, but it's more of a home-based business. And then we'll dive into the investment. Just because you have access to $10 million, you may want to keep your investment much smaller at $100,000. So are there franchises that exist, for that type of investment? So we look at all these characteristics, and there's anywhere from 15 to 20 that we'll review, so that at the end of that call, we'll know exactly on paper what this franchise model looks like, this perfect business, how we're going to fund it, and then I go to market and to see what is available, both franchises in your area as well as resale, so that on our third call we go through 3 brands that perfectly align and perfectly match all the characteristics that we detailed one by one, and we make the intro right to the brand. So in a couple weeks, we learn if franchising is a good fit, what the ideal fit is, and then we go right and make the introductions to the brands, so that you're talking to brands and you're talking to funding companies, so that everything kind of aligns to make sure you're comfortable with the entire process. And the best part, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm. No, go ahead. The best part.
I was going to say the best part is that there's no cost to anyone we work with. We're compensated like a real estate agent. So the franchisors pay us a fee to send them qualified families that are good fits for their brand.
So it doesn't hurt anyone to just try if they want to.
I would say worst case on that first call, it's a 20-minute investment. It will never cost you anything working with myself. I guarantee you'll walk away with something, some education, like just the idea that there are 4,000 franchise companies and most of them are not in fast food. People are like, okay, wait a second. I definitely have some more interest because I want to explore kind of what's out there. So yeah, you'll learn something new. And if the timing isn't right, we're proactive. What's not a right fit? Is it credit score? Well, there's credit repair companies. Is it funding? Well, maybe we work on putting aside a few extra bucks and using that for that down payment to make sure everything aligns. So we always put together a plan, and I put everything in our CRM, so there's a consistent follow up with info.
So it's like one of those things that if you're interested, just try it. Just start with that call, right? See if you can move forward.
Yeah. Learn about it. Learn what exists. Learn what are the requirements of a franchise. Figure out if it's a good fit. We may figure out in a couple minutes that franchising isn't the right fit, you're more of a startup person, that's fine. There's no right or wrong here. And if I have a contact or a connection, I'll make that introduction. I work with people all the time that want to convert their business into a franchise. I have another company that really dives deep into that area, but I take those calls. I do a little bit of education and refer over to that business. So yeah, it's good to narrow down the search, because if franchising isn't a good fit, you eliminate that. There are other opportunities in real estate and startups, and maybe the best option is the job route, the W-2 route, and that's okay. Maybe it's just a different industry, maybe a different company, and we work with companies that do LinkedIn profile refreshes and resumes and cover letters and things like that. And I guess with ChatGPT, I guess you can use AI, I guess, to create all that. I'm still new to it, but that'd be maybe another route. So.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that the tool's there, but if you don't know how to use it, you still need these other services. There's some
Correct.
people that just are not going to embrace the technology. When it comes,
which you should.
to,
We all have to, I think. At some point.
You really should. But some people you can't make do things.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely.
So you mentioned that there's franchise options to like work from home, which is very interesting because I never really thought of that as being a thing. So what type of businesses are you looking at when it comes to those?
Yeah, we call these home-based service businesses. So it could be anything in the home services space. So it could be something like mosquito spraying. It could be roofing. One of my favorites is we have a company that does mold remediation. They'll remove any mold, black mold, green mold, if there was a fire in the home. And you can work from home. Your technicians go out. They have a van with some equipment. Your salespeople are going out. And yes, you are leaving the home. Your customers are not coming to you. You're going to the customer. But it does not require you to have an office or warehouse in many cases, as opposed to a traditional gym, traditional health and we'll call it health and wellness type of business, where you have that physical location and all the work is being handled at that physical address. This is allowing you to kind of work from home. There's going to be some travel. Your staff, your salesperson is going east, your tech is going west, and you're maybe going in between. But at the end of the day, at some point, some of those businesses will require maybe a small office outside the home. Maybe a small warehouse, depending how large you get. If you have 4 or 5 trucks, where are they being parked? So there's some opportunities there. But yeah, there's just dozens and dozens of companies that will allow you just to keep the investment lower. So what it does is it cuts the investment down significantly, and instead of waiting, 12 months, even up to 24 months to find that physical location, you can get up and running in as little as 90 days.
Okay, so you basically can get into a franchise that doesn't have the overhead that would be very costly when you're getting started.
Correct. Yeah, you can significantly reduce the overhead, because with a brick and mortar location, there's build out. So if it's a gym, there's equipment, there's build out to the specs of the franchisor, and now you're dealing with rents, and maybe you have the security deposits and things like that. So plus this takes time, and every state is different, but you have to have inspections and permits and things like that. So I tell everyone, if you're looking at a physical brick and mortar location, unless you just find the perfect place on the first time around that needs minimal work, expect 6 to 12 months. At least I'd say closer to 12 months to get up and running, versus something non-brick and mortar and up and running as quick as 30 to 90 days. You could be up and running and generating revenue. So they both work. Some people just like the control aspect of having everyone report to that location. When you own a home services space, unlike a McDonald's where you know exactly where you're located, you may cover 1 or 2 counties in your state, and those entire counties, both residential and commercial, could be potential customers of yours, and you're able to network and work with those individuals. So it definitely requires no brick and mortar, but if there's vehicles involved, there may be this idea of buying 2 or 3 vehicles to send out with your technicians, and there are definitely funding options for that. So there are other costs that could eventually come up, unless it's when we talked about the perfect franchise model unless it's a hybrid model, which is you're using contractors in your local market to do the work. We see that in roofing and painting. Then you don't have to worry about all the trucks and all the staff. You're essentially working with 2 to 4 or maybe up to a dozen painting contractors in your market that you can assign work to, and then just have a small staff, maybe a customer service person / admin and a salesperson that's going out and working with the customers. So lots of different models. It more comes down to preference than anything else.
Do you find that more people that want control want a location, they want W-2 employees, and then there's other people that have like the little bit more of like, I don't know, like they understand how independent contractors work. It's, a little less on you on how they do, but you got to depend on them.
A lot of people are not certain. So most of the people I work with, I would say 80% or more have never owned the business. So they don't know sometimes the questions to these, contractor versus a W-2. You kind of have to show them that these are the pros and cons. These are the differences of this labor market. You have a lot more control with a W-2 employee. You train them, you show them exactly what to do. You provide them all the truck, the van, whatever's included, plus the chemicals or supplies. A contractor, they're doing their own hiring and they're bringing their own van and equipment, and they have to still meet the standards, but definitely less control. So it's more of walking them through. I call them trial balloons, right? This is an example of a we'll call it painting ABC company, and this is what it looks like. These are the pros, these are the cons. You don't have to worry about constantly interviewing all your painters and having a couple dozen painters, but you need to have 2 or 3 solid contractors to get started. Obviously, the franchisor will walk you through exactly how to interview them, what that looks like. So I kind of set more of the expectation on the differences. When it comes to a physical location, again, some people may like that or feel it's more semi-absentee, where they hire a general manager and some staff, everyone reports together, versus anything non-brick and mortar. You have this project management piece that doesn't exist with the physical location, where you're making sure that jobs are getting done, salespeople are going out, and then not only are they done, but the customer's happy. You're generating referral, then going to the next job. So you're never in the same place twice. And some people like the control of, having it in one location, and just having that. Okay, everyone reports there, and there's no, appointments. Everything is going to be done in house. The customer comes to you. You do a little bit more on the marketing side, but customers are coming directly into your door. Some people like it. Some people prefer that, and then they see the numbers and they're like, okay, great, I prefer this, but I can't afford it. So the question comes up, am I open to looking at something home-based to start, or do I hold off and figure out how I can come up with the funds? So we come across that scenario, and sometimes it's usually, let's look at something home-based where the investment's going to be significantly less, and then maybe later on look into a brick-and-mortar gym or health and wellness center.
When it comes to preferences, what do you prefer to own?
What I prefer to own, I want to keep the business as simple as possible, and I want the business to be as recession resistant as possible. And I can definitely give some examples. For me, nothing against brick and mortar, but I want to be up and running quickly. I want my money working for me because I'm going to pay that franchise fee, and I want to be up and running in a relatively 2 or 3 months. So I like things. There's a company we work with that specializes in expense reduction. No employees needed. You would bring on 1099 coaches, and you work with small businesses in your local market to help them save on their expenses. It's not an accounting business. And when I say it's recession resistant, it's because you're helping either in an up market, down market, or sideways market or economy. We're helping people, small businesses, save money, and in return, splitting the savings in half. Very simple model. Doesn't cost the client any money unless they decide to move forward with your suggestions. Simple model, lower investment. You don't need any staff, any general managers. You can run it on your own, or you can set it up via a joint venture and work with other franchisees in the market. A second that would be recession resistant, which is at the top of my list, is senior care and in-home senior care. Working with families that have mom and dad are getting older. They don't. They have only so many years left, and they don't want to be in a facility. They want to be. They want to be in the comfort of their home. So you essentially are offering a caretaker service where you're matching up, meeting the family, meeting the parents, making sure the fit's there. That everything aligns with. If they're very active and they are, I don't know, big tennis players, or mom and dad are in wheelchairs, you need to make sure that caretaker has the appropriate vehicle that can keep up with mom and dad if they're playing tennis or running chores and things like that. You can't stop aging, right? You can't, and taxes, aging and taxes are the two guarantees. So this is a business where the franchisor will look at a market of that 75 year and older community to gauge if there's enough of a population to make that territory worthwhile for the franchisee. And then if I have a third suggestion, it's in the water and smoke mitigation franchise, dealing with natural disasters, flooding, fires, any type of specialty cleaning work where they'll come in and remove the mold. You need specialty training, you need special licensing and things like that. This was a essential business during COVID, so we had a stress test of this business. It did really well, and these are businesses that require a little bit larger of an investment, but very the staff is a lot lighter than you would see in a traditional restaurant or fast food type of business, where you have a couple trained technicians to get started, maybe a manager, maybe a salesperson, and you're able to get people back in their homes as soon as possible, getting rid of the mold and anything else, and drying out the home so that the home can be rebuilt as soon as possible.
How do you feel about insurance franchise? Because that's been a big thing, right? These insurance companies have been paying out crazy policies on things, especially the fires, for example, in California, and then they were dropping people because they were just because they couldn't afford to keep people in California covered. I don't really understand it fully, but I mean, they're doing same thing. I'm in Nevada, and car insurance companies are leaving Nevada, and the insurance policies are just crazy expensive.
Yeah, I am. Yes, I have. I'm in New Jersey. I have heard that, and we just got our health insurance and homeowners insurance. We got dinged twice, and I was shocked at what the increases were. And I felt like we're getting less, but the policies are going through the roof. I'm not as familiar in the insurance space, so this is actually a really good question, because a lot of the franchise brands we work with deal with insurance. And part of the due diligence, so we work with, like you mentioned, California. Not as familiar with Nevada, but I know also in Florida, where certain things aren't covered. I mean, Florida, you have hurricanes hitting constantly and storms and things like that. So you want to do due diligence on the state to figure out, hey, is this going to be heavy insurance work, or is it going to be private pay? If it is going to be private pay, am I confident that I am going to get paid? People have the money to pay for whatever service was provided. So. And part of any franchise looking at who's paying the bill, and that's the insurance company. What does the insurance climate look like in that space? There's really cool things that they're doing with and working with the insurance companies. So we have brands, for example, in the roofing space, and they'll actually prior to a storm, like we just had the nor'easter here on the East Coast. They can select certain areas and fly drones over the neighborhoods and take pictures and video of your roof. They even have infrared to check for leaks, for if heat is escaping the roof. And then they'll take picture, video, same thing, infrared after the storm, and they could submit those claims directly to the insurance companies, being proactive and helping the homeowner say, well, I live in a very kind of tight community. It's hard to see the very top of the roof. These drones are doing all that for you and showing that proof, the before and after. So it's actually helping people in the community get the roof fixed faster and making the case that, yes, this was from a storm. It wasn't due to neglect, for example. So there are plenty of companies that work with the insurance companies, but the insurance industry itself, I am not as familiar with.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a mess right now, just kind of all over. It's the natural disasters.
It's an evolving climate. Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to look at your state and rules. Certain states have different rules. Florida, contractor license, California as well. Even in franchising, when you look at a franchise, some people get so excited about a brand, they do the research to find out it's not even available in your state. Some new brands, in states like Washington State, Minnesota, California, those are registration states. They have additional requirements to get registered for that specific brand. A new brand usually waits a few years for a track record before registering. So you may visited Arizona. That franchise is doing really well to find that's not available in your market, and it's good to know ahead of time. That's why we help with that process. We help eliminate like what's available, what's sold out, what is coming to market. We can help someone navigate those climates. But yeah, you definitely want to do, to your point, local research so that no one knows your home market better than you. So after doing all your due diligence, maybe checking out who the competition is. Competition is good. It's not negative. You want competition. That means there's a market, but are there any true players? Is it a bunch of small companies that don't know how to return a phone call? When we get work done at the house, I called a few mom and pop, and two returned the call. One showed up. The other three phone calls never even got a response. And I'm not saying mom and pop in general. I'm sure it can happen with franchise and everyone else, but you need a good follow-up system. And I don't have a lot of faith in some of the small businesses in that, being able to return a phone call for a simple handyman service. I typically get very few calls back, which is frustrating. So the franchise really stepping in saying, we have an automated process. We've invested millions of dollars in AI. So at bare minimum, an AI agent is going to text you, is going to call you to confirm the appointment, let you know when that person is there to arrive, and having a call center that's typically national to that franchisee, where all the marketing leads go to a call center. That call center is booking, they're taking payment, they're answering basic questions, they're rescheduling and funneling all those calls and appointments directly to the calendar of each and every franchisee across the country.
It kind of helps put those systems in place. I've had the same issue when I'd call like certain companies. You get a list and you're like trying to find pool service or something, and you call 10 different people and you maybe get one call back. Like, that's insane.
You get I questioned one. Just it was a friend of a friend, and I'm like, you lost out on this business. He's like, well, this is our busy time, and I go, exactly. When you should answer every single call, even if the message said we're just slammed right now, it's going to be a couple weeks. Let's get something on the calendar. Doing something like that, hiring a part-time person. It could be, maybe it's a student. We live around the corner from the high school. Where they're handling those calls for you. But I hear that all the time. So I go, you're kind of capping your growth, right? Because you can't even handle the additional calls. So you want those systems in place. And you don't need a franchise to set up these systems, but you do get that day one with the franchise. So as soon as you pay that fee, you get access to marketing, call centers, and all the systems in place, and can easily take advantage of those services.
It's crazy how many people don't when they don't have that option, right? They don't have a backing where they have these systems where you wouldn't just hire a VA. They're so cheap. I mean, at least somebody's answering the phone.
I don't know if it's people just get overwhelmed. There's a really good book. I'm sure you read it. It's called, there's a couple good books, but The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And it talks about, in the world where they're talking about a lot less kids are going to college. My son's a senior going to college, looking at colleges, I should say. We're just starting to apply. A lot of kids are going back to the trades, which we've come kind of full circle. And the issue with a lot of the trades is that there are a lot of technicians, great plumber, but they don't know how to return phone calls, don't have a CRM in place and things like that. And that technician approach is, just because you're a good plumber doesn't mean you should run a company. So either you hook up with the franchise that has a system, or you have that operating partner that's maybe the face of the brand that's setting up the CRM, the relationships, making sure that the financials are in order. I've seen lots of businesses do really high revenue numbers and have nothing to show for it at the end of the year because their costs are not in line, or they're overpaying, or there's theft and things like that. So E-Myth Revisited talks about that. If you're a technician and what it takes to actually have a business, and a business is a system, right? You have to systematize so that you can back away, go on vacation, and that business, you're still providing services to your customers. And that was a big eye opener for me when I read that book. And the other book is Traction by Gino Wickman. And Traction is basically, how do, we have all these KPIs and numbers we should be monitoring, like review your P&L. Well, that's common sense, but what do I review? When do I review it? Who do I review it with? Those are the questions. Like, there's a time and place with the accountant, with your bookkeeper. Maybe it's daily, maybe it's weekly. Where does the balance sheet fall into play? Most people I talk to don't know the difference between a profit, loss, and balance sheet. So it's getting all that in place so that, what good is growth if your margins are dropping every day, and those customers are causing 80% of your headaches and bringing in 20% of your income. So it's looking at those and just putting guidelines. And a lot of the franchise companies, and this costs a ton of money to provide coaching, they provide that as part of their franchise fee. They go, we will bring in EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System implementers, into our system so that they can provide all the training and coaching, showing you step-by-step what you need to do daily, weekly, and monthly, as well as quarterly. And on top of that, then they get into how can we save you money. This is your pro forma, and this is how we're utilizing AI for our call center. I just spoke with a brand that could do 1,000 calls at the same time for every franchisee across the country. It's a total of 1,000, where they can be answering all those phone calls and eventually send it over to the franchisee to speak with a live person. But just all the efficiencies and ways of cutting down expense, because you got to be in this market super competitive and make sure you're paying very close attention to all your margins.
It's funny that you mentioned the EOS system, because I work for an accounting and money management firm, and it's in LA. And when I first started with them, they were starting to implement the EOS system, but they tried to do it themselves. And for about 6 months, I think we tried to do it on our own, and it was just a complete mess. The moment they added a coach and some guidance, like, things were actually starting to work.
Yeah, like anything else, right? You have the system, you read the book, and then it's like, what the heck do I even do with this? So I interviewed, I think it was Justin Mink, if I got his name correctly, but 4 or 5 months ago he was on the show, and he was an EOS implementer coach. And you need that coach, that nudge to say, did you do this? Did you put together the numbers? Did you review this? And it's definitely worth. I've gotten nothing but great feedback, especially the more complicated your business is. But eventually, you don't want to run. This individual is running themselves into the ground with their prior businesses. So, learned about EOS, was a client, and then ended up becoming an implementer. Loved it so much, and it's he learned quite a bit, and I think sometimes you do need that kick in the butt, that coach to really stay on top of you, to really help you out.
Yeah, I think it made a world of difference. It's surprising how many different types of coaching there are, and how beneficial each individual one is, right? You have certain coaches for certain areas of business. Some of it's just the system based, some of it's finance. There's so many different types of assistance you can get, and people don't even realize how many doors there are to open. And I think the idea of a franchise having those systems in place really help a lot of regular people who don't even know where to start.
And that's basically where everyone's at. It's like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to even post on social media. I deal with people all the time, and I'm just shocked. Like, I've never posted on social. I'm in sales, but I'm fed leads through or given a territory. Like I was given when I worked on Wall Street. I worked for one of the larger banks out there, and you're just given a book of business. I mean, you're not given sales. You're just given, like, this is who you're assigned to. We'll handle the marketing and the collateral and all that kind of stuff, but you're in charge of these, 3,000 or 4,000 financial advisors in this specific market. So, but I didn't have to post. I didn't have to do all this other stuff. So when people think about business ownership, they think they have to be experts, and I'm like, you really don't. It's all figured out. There's a cost to this, right? That's not covered by the franchise fee. You do have to pay a monthly cost for pay-per-click, SEO, anything they're doing to generate, get on the AI search engines, anything to generate those appointments. You're just simply monitoring the numbers, the collateral, the assets, making sure that it all lines up. There's no mistakes. and then adjusting accordingly. So if lead flow is really high and close ratios are low, what's the problem? Well, it could be the quality of lead, it could be your salesperson, it could be both. So let's figure out, if we have to adjust the ads, or if we need to retrain the salesperson. And that's what a good reputable franchise will really help you in figuring that up quick.
Yeah, that helps a lot too, right? To have all of that in place, because that's something also most people are not educated in. Don't know where to start. Like you said, there's so many people that don't even use social media for the uses that you have it for, right?
Right.
Most people are just like, here's what happened today. Here's what I ate.
Right. Take a picture
or
of your
don't post
dinner.
at all.
Yeah. Right. I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because that gives you like that extra education that you wouldn't even know where to look. There's so much information out there. I mean, when it comes to marketing, you can search and search and search and be very, very confused on where to even start. So to have some kind of guidance really, really helps.
I agree. And or you may have a background in marketing and not want to deal with it. I mean, now we're talking about, you see things like Google, like I know about it, but I don't want to stay up with the trends. Like Google, SEO, is Google dead? Is SEO dead? Now it's all AI related, and it's all being, there's so much noise out there. So you may not want to deal with it, or you just want to be done at a national level. We're saying, okay, we're going to give this to all the franchisees. It's the same assets. We're going to deploy those assets via social media. Maybe it's launching a podcast. Maybe it's you really like just daily videos and figuring out that autonomy that you get with the franchise of how you're going to really run with the marketing. But instead of creating everything from scratch, there's that time value of money. I can use the assets. Maybe they're not perfect, but they do the job, and I can start setting up meetings as opposed to waiting a month to get all the copy and everything approved. So it just speeds. I call it an unfair advantage. It speeds up the process. And again, it's even if you have experience, it may just be like I have experience setting up CRMs, but not specifically in this industry. I'd just rather have a franchisor or a company come in and just set it up for me day one.
Well, and sometimes, the system's already been proven to work. That's why they're using it. So it kind of saves all the guesswork, I guess.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah.
And when it comes, so looking on the other side, so we've been mostly focused on, like investing into a franchise and what that looks like. But what does it look like as a small business to become a franchise?
It's actually the exact same process. Why are you looking at? So for example, I was working with someone that he's a painter, has a couple employees, and he said he did okay, but he had no consistency in his business. Didn't even have a website, no social media presence. It was just referrals, and he did a decent amount of income, but he kept losing staff because there was no consistency. He would have no work for weeks, and then 5 jobs all in the same day. So we've had companies come and say to us, we have a client base, but we need the systems in place. And if they join one of the national franchises, they would have to pay a franchise fee, a little bit less of a learning curve unless they paint completely different. And this was a traditional franchise, painting franchise, so there wasn't a huge difference. But they, number one, set up all their systems immediately. So the CRM, the marketing, was all taken care of, and then they plugged into a marketing system, right? The turnkey marketing and a call center. So that was all within 90 days. Secondly, that franchise fee, I told them, could potentially be paid back pretty quickly because they're getting national pricing now at companies like a Sherwin-Williams or a Benjamin Moore, saving them a lot more than what they were paying for paint prior. And I don't remember the exact amount, but just that savings alone in supplies and in paints and things like that. Plus, you're getting, you're paying a royalty, so you're getting a coach. That coach was traveling in the field with them, saying, "Hey, if you don't want to hire any more employees, why don't we hook up with some painting contractors where you're getting the work and then you're kind of subbing it out, or certain jobs are being subbed out." So they help them develop relationships both at the vendor level and those contractors. Finally, that one brand, I don't like to talk specific brands because I don't like to say one is better than the other, but this one particular brand had national partnerships with some of the large retailers out there, big brick and mortar standalone building retailers, So right off the bat, if any of those retailers fell in the state that they were doing business in the territory, they would be able to bid on some of those larger jobs that they would not give maybe a local painter, because they wanted this national presence. They wanted to make sure that they had painters in all 50 states. They wanted to make sure that they had the appropriate insurance requirements and the criminal and bonds that they require, the bonds and things like that. So it's peace of mind from the retailer, and that's one of the benefits and perks that the franchisee is getting, is all these big name national brands contacting you first for bids, and you can potentially, and not guarantee, potentially have work day one just because of those relationships.
Very interesting.
But there's a franchise fee. You got to pay an upfront fee, and I always say you got to be comfortable with it.
So that they basically pay a fee to have like this system in place. And then how many different like franchise options are there? So do you work with multiple different franchises that take these on? How does that work?
There's 4,000 franchises in the U.S. That number slightly changes, and 70 plus industries. So there's plenty of brands out there. Do we work with all the brands? No. We have staff. We have 2 full-time staff at the back office, and all they do is pre-screen companies. So they'll look at the franchise disclosure document, the franchise agreements. They'll speak with the franchisor. They'll speak with the franchisees, and looking for consistency, positive reviews. They're going to check that agreement, making sure there's not 1,000 lawsuits in there. If they've had great growth, everything is positive, but that franchise company, that franchisor has 50 locations and they want to grow to 100, that's great. How are you going to get there? How are you? What are you going to change in your team to support those franchisees? If they don't have a clear path, probably not a good fit until that's figured out, because what good is all that growth if you can't get these franchisees trained and up and running? So there's a lot we look into. So we work with some of the top brands out there that have passed the pre-screen, but for someone going in and just contacting and going online, there's over 4,000 in the U.S. and I will say it gets overwhelming. That's why I feel like the process of figuring out the ideal fit first and then seeing what's available in your market really helps. Maybe it's not 3, maybe it's 10 that you come back with, but starting off with 3 that are all kind of different, so you can compare and contrast. Maybe it's a B2B business, maybe one's B2C, one's a brick and mortar business that check off all the boxes. I think that'll help in not getting overwhelmed, and then you can kind of decide, brick and mortar is a little bit too overwhelming for me. Let me stick with something that is a little bit more home based. But it's franchises. I always say they're disguised as other companies. So for example, we work with a dog waste removal franchise. They do pet waste. They work with HOAs and things like that. And people say, well, I've never thought of getting into that space. I don't know anything about it. Well, first off, as I mentioned, you don't need to know anything about the service itself. They'll teach you. But what it's disguised is a technology and marketing company where the tech really handles a bulk of the work, the scheduling, eliminates the need for a general manager. So really it's a technology marketing engine that happens to be in the pet removal space. It's the tech stack that they're giving the franchisee that they've spent hundreds, if not millions of dollars developing, figuring out the best approach and getting the jobs done as efficiently as possible. That's what you're buying into. So that system, technically, if the tech is there, could work for dog waste removal. It could work for cleaning. It could work for roofing, because they're using that same engine to bring in those leads and manage the process as efficiently as possible.
Do you ever have like somebody who's do they need to have, so somebody who has a business and they want to franchise it, do they usually typically have multiple locations already, or who comes in and says that? Do they have one and you have to be like, well,
yeah, so you have a concept that you actually want to create into a franchise. There's no right or wrong here. You could have one location does really well and you could decide to franchise it. I personally would recommend having a couple locations, maybe even outside your state, one in New Jersey, one in Nevada, one in Florida, just to see it works across the country. But there's no right or wrong. What I see a lot of people do, and the mistake I see a lot of people make, is they'll spend all this money to create a franchise a disclosure document, which is not cheap, and that's the actual, and that contains that actual franchise agreement. I always say, do that last. Figure out and talk to multiple people to make sure the system is in place. Because as a franchisor, so you have this, we'll call it a gym that is doing really well in Nevada, and you want to franchise it all over the country. Okay, great. You need to say, okay, as a franchisor, my role is going to change. I am no longer a gym owner, but I am a coach to 500 gym owners across the country and making them kind of replicate the success I've had in this specific location in Nevada. So you become a coach. You got to make sure the brand is continuous, right? Everyone's using the same logo and colors and things like that. So it's really taking a step back and saying, this is the support that I'm going to offer to all of my franchisees. This is the CRM. This is the marketing. Excuse me. If someone comes to me, answer this basic question: why the heck would I buy your franchise? And if you don't have a compelling reason or sales pitch on why you should buy it, then you're not ready. You want to make sure that you have those differentiators in place. Our model is so different. We're high ticket, all inclusive. We deal with health and wellness. We deal with nutrition. We sell supplements. All you need is 50 members to break even. Anything above that is pure profit, and we can fit up to 200 people. So in our facility. So that means 50. The first 50 covers the cost. The next 150 is pure profit, and this is what a location can generate $300,000 up to $300,000 in profit. And the way we'll do that is we're going to bring in those members day one via pre-sales. We're going to keep them on via this way, and we're going to have a really strong referral process. And our gyms are different. Why? Because of our coaching and the proprietary tech. We have brands that have their own technology, which is kind of cool. So having a compelling reason, why would anyone off the street looking at your brand, knowing that there's hundreds of other options out there, decide to buy a franchise with you? So those are the things kind of at a high level. And I work with some partners that specialize in actually creating all those specific documents. So the training is done, the website is up and running, and then eventually, creating that franchise agreement. But that compelling reason, like I'm killing it right now in my market. Great. How is that going to work in New Jersey? Well, I don't know. Will this work in New Jersey? Okay. Well, maybe it's not a national franchise. Maybe it's a West Coast thing. Maybe it's an East Coast thing. So figuring out what that growth looks like, and if it works. If you're offering mosquito spraying and you don't have mosquitoes in your state, it's not going to work. So getting really clear on the market, who it's for, and if it's something that could be franchised nationally.
Have you had anyone that wanted to get into a franchise but wanted to do it in a different state? So say they live in California, which
right.
is kind of rough when it comes to taxes and stuff like that, right? And you want to invest in Arizona instead because it's a little more red, a little more conservative. Have you had people do that where they open up like a franchise in another state?
Yes, if it is allowed by the franchisor. So the franchisor sometimes has stipulations. If you have a manager running it out there, we're okay with it. I have other brands, and this is case by case, where you have to be within the same state of the actual business. Second piece, and this is something that's critical in that example, California, Arizona, because I had the exact same scenario. The if a franchise, if you want to open up in Arizona, but you reside in California, if California is that brand is not registered in the state of California, you cannot open up in Arizona because it's where you reside. So everything is based off of residency. Now you can get it could get complicated. Well, I own 2 homes, and that can all be discussed directly with the franchise and the rules of, was it 51%, 49%? I don't know the answer there, but we've had someone that was in California, partner was in Arizona. California was, I believe, in that state, if I'm getting the states correctly, California, they were not available at that point in time. So they said, based off of that, you cannot open up in Arizona unless we register in California, or that partner, that operating partner in Arizona buys the franchise completely under their name, and you're no longer involved in the business. But there's going to be certain state registrations. It sounds complicated, but the cool part is once you talk with a brand, they will let you know right away what can or cannot be done. But yes, that does happen. I wouldn't say it happens often, but it does come up on occasion, and so we always go back to the brand and what they allow. Sometimes there's exclusions if certain brands, if you have a certain net worth, you would be allowed to open up that franchise even though it's not registered. So there are some potential exclusions, and again, that's not to give you too much info, but it's a case by case situation based off the franchise itself.
Okay, so so what you're saying is, like, if somebody is in two different states and they're partnering on a franchise, it varies depending on what states they're in, on whether or not they're even going to be able to.
Correct. It depends on where you reside, who's signing the franchise agreement, what percentage. So all that would have to be dictated from the franchise. They'll check in with the state, and they may come back and say, yeah, we could do it, but you that live in California, technically we can't work with you because we're not registered, so everything is going to be done in Arizona through the partner, and you cannot sign the franchise agreement because of that. So, but they can walk you through that, because it may be just a temporary thing where they're just waiting on the registration, and it may be a month, so then it doesn't become an issue anymore. But in other cases, certain brands, especially the newer brands, are not registered at all in California, so that would cause an issue there, and essentially the franchisor would have to come back with options.
With all the companies moving out of California, do you find a lot of franchisees are not even trying to be in California? Like the new
believe
brands?
It or not, the new brands, it takes we work across the entire country. I wouldn't say a lot of the franchises we work with, there are a handful that are based out of California. But yeah, I mean, it's there's kind of scattered all over. A lot of even the development people that we work with are all remote. So, but yeah, it's really scattered all over the map. And based off the brands themselves, it's one of those that if they feel comfortable with the additional requirements to register. So I wouldn't say they're necessarily moving out, because there's not a lot of the brands we work with are based out of California. It's just that's an area. It's a state that can open the business, but they're headquartered in, maybe in New York or in Florida and that kind of thing. We see a lot of businesses headquartered in Florida.
A lot are moving to, I don't know specifically on franchises, but there's a lot of companies moving their corporate offices to like Texas too.
I have heard that, yes. Texas, Florida, no state income tax, and things like that. But yeah, I've heard that as well. I can't say a lot on the franchise side, but I've seen a lot of business move. I've even just seen individuals that I know move out of the state, and at this point, I'm in New Jersey, and New Jersey is not a cheap state either. So I'm trying to, when we eventually retire, I'm like, where are we going to end up? And that's eventually we're planning way ahead. But where do we want to end up being? And we're limited because I can't take the heat. New Jersey's hot enough, and we have 4 true seasons. So who knows where we'll end up? But yeah, each state has their own tax preferences, and local. We pay state income tax. Other states don't. I wasn't aware of how many states did not have a state income tax. So it's pretty interesting, and something to bring up with the financial advisor at some point.
just to see where the next move is.
Yeah, and what the situation is, right? Are you retired? Is it income? Is it cap gains? There's so many. I tell you one thing. The best thing I did was about 15 years ago. I was referred to a financial advisor. I wrote about this in my book because this saved me so many headaches and aggravation. Met a financial advisor. We became good friends. And I said, I'm trying to build a team, my go-to team for anything I need, whether it become accounting, financial advice, legal. All 3 women live in the same town, CPA, attorney, financial advisor. They actually, I think, go out at least once a quarter, once a month. Maybe it's once a month. They're all friends in the same town, and they're all able to, if I have a complicated, not an issue, but a scenario where I'm trying to figure out the accounting benefits me here, but I want to make sure I'm legally protected there. They get together and meet as a team so that they're looking at all aspects of it. So if there's one good piece of advice is, get your team, and it takes a while. I've always had attorneys and CPAs and financial advisors, but the missing piece was there was zero communication. Even though I said, bill me your rate, I don't care about the rate, I just want the best informed decision. It was like pulling teeth to have all 3 kind of contribute and talk to one another. We have a team in place. They're phenomenal, and they don't work exclusively for me. Just if I call them, I could just email the three of them and just say, in this situation, what's going to give me the best tax benefit, but also protect me, and yada yada yada, and what does it look like in the financial plan? And that's been a game changer for me, because it makes life so much easier. You give them the info, they'll ask some follow up, and then they'll kind of come back to you with what their recommendations are, considering all three areas. So definitely a game changer if you can develop that team sooner than later. You don't wait till after forming a business. If you could do it now, it doesn't cost you anything, and then eventually, if you need them, you got your go-to team.
Yeah, having that in place, I think a lot of people miss that, right? They just want to get started. They think that they can do everything themselves, and it's good to have those experts kind of look at things and help you, guide you in the right direction, so you kind of skip some of the mistakes that a lot of people make.
I think so. And the advice my attorney gave was find someone local to your state, because I know New Jersey law, and I have family that moved to Florida. They were asking for a referral, and I said, I don't know anyone in Florida. They said, well, we'll use your attorney. I said, no, she does not want to work outside her state, because the estate planning is completely different when you go state to state, and the rules, regulations. So hire CPA, you can get away. It doesn't really have to be local unless you know someone locally, but the attorney, you definitely want someone from your state that knows your state law.
Yeah, that makes a big difference, because it does change very, very largely state
It's
to
huge.
state.
Estate planning alone, it's a huge difference on what needed to get set up from New Jersey to Florida. So if you're planning on moving to Florida, then you want to find someone locally there, whatever state you're moving to. But yeah, there's a huge difference, especially in the estate planning.
Yeah. So anything else that we should know when it comes to franchising?
I mean, really, it's that, as I mentioned, it's a business on training wheels. It's a business in a box. I think everyone owes it to themselves to give themselves a shot. Figure out. Not retire in 20, 30 years that I would have, should have, and maybe I should have looked into it. So, if you want to create time and financial freedom, I think with a business is the route to go. And there's different vehicles, and there's real estate, and there's startups and franchises. So, you owe it to yourself to do the research, talk to an expert in each of those categories, learn a little bit about it, figure out. Like I'm all in franchising 100%, and I reinvest my earnings into the stock market and real estate syndication. Is that my bread and butter? No, I know enough, just enough to get by, and probably takes up all of an hour a month, probably an hour max, or maybe an hour a quarter. So, pick something that you truly enjoy. Talk to those individuals. Take Warren, I call him Uncle Warren Buffett's advice, and you don't have to invest in everything. I think that's silly. I don't think you have to be allocated in every single thing and commodity out there. Invest in what you know. I don't invest in crypto. I have nothing against crypto. I don't understand the market. I'm sure I'm indirectly invested through something else, but and there's nothing wrong with that. Invest in what you understand. Once you understand it, you can slowly get into it. But pick the vehicle that best suits your needs. If you want that business in a box, I can talk you through what to expect on the franchise side, or talk to someone that maybe did that startup. But the key point in this discussion of freedom is that this time in financial freedom is true. I have never missed one of my kids' events from the age of 4 to 18. Never missed a soccer game. Even became a soccer coach. So that's my success story. Never missing any of the kids' and personal events. Some people like to say they own 10 homes and all that other great stuff, and that's fine as well. But for me, it was time freedom, which was most important than anything else. But understand that this doesn't happen overnight. It took me that first year was a tough year. It's a builder year. I didn't make what I was making at my corporate job. It takes time. Follow the system, trust the process, and you'll get there. So set the expectation. It's going to take you that year to really build the business. I'm not saying you can't make money the first year, but you could make money. But I recommend reinvesting where you can, growing it, staying lean that first year, and then hopefully growing exponentially from there. But you owe it to yourself to have that conversation, whether it's with me or another franchise consultant, reach out, learn something new, and then decide if it's something you should move forward with, and involve your family. If you're married, if you share, whoever's in the household, let them know what's going on. Let them know that you're going to be maybe investing a big chunk of change, life savings, or maybe not going to be around nights and weekends for the first couple months until the business is up and running, so that there are no surprises and everyone's on the same page. That'll save a divorce or some fights and things like that. So I put my Dr. Phil hat on there and just say, let everyone know what the heck is going on, so that you're not doing things behind anyone's back, and they know that the intention is to build this thing so that mom and dad are not missing any more of your events and things like that. So that's my 2 cents.
Your nice little end with a TED Talk.
my TED Talk, my shout out to Dr. Phil. But in all seriousness, I think it's something that I encourage. It's something to look into and really gauge, compare and contrast, the time commitment, the investment, the risk. But the more specific you get in whatever you decide and what the outcome is and what the ideal situation looks like, that you don't need any help. You could do that internally and then go out and look for the experts and to figure out what those vehicles are. But if you can figure out the ideal situation internally, and that could be just over the weekend, writing it down on a piece of paper, you're going to be 10 steps ahead of most other people.
Just taking that action. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, you can only research so much. I mean, eventually you're going to have to take some action and really just, bet on yourself at the end. I mean, it sounds kind of corny, but that's essentially what you're doing. Is you're betting on yourself, and you're saying, well, what if it doesn't work? And I go, yeah, it may not work, but what about if it does work and things go really well, and you don't have to commute into the office and things like that. So anyway,
sometimes that's the scary part, though, is if it works, if I'm successful, right? Some people are scared to be successful.
I agree. I agree. They almost sabotage their success due to that. And I'm a strong believer. If you can actually think of it and feel it and see it, I think it'll come to fruition. And where most people get lost is the how. How am I going to do it? Don't worry about it. Figure out what it looks like. You can do your research. You can talk to those people, but if you write it down and you read it over and over again, and I know that sounds kind of corny, but I've been doing that for the last 25 plus years. I have a massive action plan I got from Tony Robbins back when he was on cassette. So this is actually going back 30 years. I still have the cassettes, and that was like my goals and the action plan. So the goal, how you're going to get there, and then recently added, what are the habits, right? What are the habits to get you there? I want to lose 30 pounds and blah, blah, blah. Great. I'm going to work out every day. Okay. But what are those specific habits? It's not just about working out. What about nutrition? What about, daily walks in the morning with with whoever, and jotting that stuff down? I think having that massive action plan of how you're going to tackle it and almost like checking it off every day is super helpful.
1000%. All right. Well, to end his great TED Talk here.
That's it.
Dr. Phil moment. I appreciate
Dr. Phil approved, yeah.
Dr. Phil, I think you would approve. Thank you so much for coming on Messy on Purpose. And after I wrap this up, if you can just hang out for a second, I'll just kind of tell you next steps. But I appreciate you educating us on franchise. And honestly, if people are interested, before we end, how do they get a hold of you? What do they do? Where can they find you?
Yeah, you go right to the website. It's GG, my initials, thefranchiseguide.com. There's 260 plus episodes of the podcast. You can search by topic. My book, actually I had it over here. I misplaced it, but Franchise Freedom, both the name of the podcast and the book. It's my exact guide of helping you find your perfect franchise, along with my TED Talk is included in there about hiring your team. And if you're really, really, really early in the process, I have 25 quick FAQs. What is a franchise? Who's a good fit? And I do quick little 2-minute videos. If you're ready to chat, you could book a call, top right corner, no cost, 20 minutes video chat, and we'll figure out together if a franchise is a good fit and what those next steps are.
It's risk-free, so why not, right? Book those calls if you're interested. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for coming
Thank you
on
very
Messy
much
on
for having
Purpose.
me. Yeah. Thank you.
And until next time, guys. Bye.